When Leonard Cohen, yes, settle the fuck down Paul, we all know, released Popular Problems in 2014, I'm sure Almost Like the Blues was intended to be a song about the monstrous brutality of war. And it is. But I don't know whether to laugh, cry, or masturbate over the fact that this gravel-voiced motherfucker's best work on the album could easily apply to Germany in a few years. I guess it depends on whether I've stocked up on enough simulator games to see me through to the fucking rapture. But just in case Farming Simulator 16 has a farmer's daughter to roll around in the virtual hay with, we best have the talk. Germany, come in and sit down, please. From the dizzying peaks of Bismarck's, no not the Kaiser's, fucking Bismarck's empire, you've been on a downward spiral. 2 world wars, occupation by the Allies, division by the US and the USSR, and decades of media, academics, and politicians fostering collective guilt on you for the actions of one maniac and his shitty mustache. It's been rough, we know. But Germany, suicide is not the answer. You have so much to live for. You're not French, for one. But if you keep going on this path, it will, well, it'll be acid, it'll be tragic, it'll be almost like the blues. If you lived under a particularly mossy rock for 2015, you might not realize that I'm talking about the ongoing migrant crisis in Europe. Oh god, isn't it something? According to German government figures leaked in October 2015, Germany expected to receive 1.5 million migrants in that year. To add some perspective on that figure, it's just under the population of fucking Philadelphia. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency's monitoring of the migrants crossing the Mediterranean by boat, just over 1 million have arrived in Europe by sea, consisting of 58% men, 25% children, and 17% women. So the migrant crisis is a gigantic clusterfuck. Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria, Macedonia, Hungary, Slovenia, Austria, even fucking Sweden have implemented some form of border control where previously there was free movement. But wait, it gets better. You thought it was hyperbole when I said, it's been rough, we know. But Germany, suicide is not the answer. You have so much to live for. You're not French, for one. Well, you couldn't be more wrong, because Deutschland has a 38 special loaded with refugees pointed right at its fucking temple. You see, it's a fact that when you add so many people to a country so quickly, its infrastructure has a fucking rough time keeping up. And combine that with the fact that many of the people coming in are from a background that thinks suicide bombing is a polite form of greeting, well, you're in for one hell of a ride, my friend. An article published by The Express, a German doctor spoke out about the chaos that the migrants have thrown German hospitals into, stating hospitals cannot cope because so many of the migrants require treatments for diseases long since eradicated in Europe, which they of course risk passing on to the locals. They also abandon their kids in the pharmacy when told they have to pay for medicine and refuse to be treated by female medics, because everyone knows that like manual transmissions, women can't use scalpels. Violent incidents in migrant hostels have also been on the rise, with violent outbreaks at hostels in Ellwangen, Schul, Bremenz, Trier, Heidenau, Dresden, and Leipzig. And it's no wonder, if I had to spend more than 5 minutes with the usual clientele of hostels that I want to smash some waxed eyebrow hipster fuck's face in as well. The biggest example of this was the September brawl in Kassel, where 350 migrants fought each other after a young Albanian man punched an 80-year-old Pakistani. At Hall 4 of the Leipzig Trade Fair, 1,800 migrants had also been given accommodation, a mix of Syrian, Iraqi, Afghans, Pakistanis, and goddamn Fremen. 200 Syrian and Afghans began fighting each other after a 17-year-old Afghan boy threatened an 11-year-old Syrian girl with a knife instead of the halal method of using your dick. Security guards and German military personnel were also attacked in the brawl, though the next day the guards apologized for their racist attempts to escape being culturally enriched. In August alone, police in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia were dispatched 926 times to migrant accommodations, while in a hostel at Königsberg, Bavaria, police claimed to have found machetes made from bed frames, because it's not the religion of peace without some honest Allah beheadings. An additional problem is the growing number of sexual assaults targeting women and children in the shelters. As early as mid-August, aid groups were reporting numerous rapes in the reception facility of Gießen, with similar reports emerging across the country. Single women no longer feel safe showering or going to the toilet at night, according to reports. The federal government's Commissioner for Abuse, Johannes William Rohrig, says the number of unreported cases is likely enormously high. Native Germans haven't exactly been sitting on their hands either. You see, I, like anyone who has even given a passing glance to modern history, know that when the crowds are suitably riled up, it takes the rest of the fucking world to put them back down again, and there will be at least one attempt at genocide in the process. So it isn't surprising that reports have surfaced of migrants being attacked in cities such as Magdeburg, Wismar, and Jena, while numerous migrant accommodation areas have been hit with arson attacks. In a few years, they'll be stepping across France's white flag if we aren't fucking careful. Germany has become a powder keg. All it will take is one spark to light it. And that spark may have come with the New Year's celebrations in Cologne, when around 100 women were sexually assaulted by 1,000 men of Arab or North African appearance. Ah, beautiful Cologne. Situated on both sides of the Rhine River, Cologne was founded in the 1st century AD to function as the capital of the Roman province Germania Inferior and to act as headquarters of the Roman military in the region. Cologne is the cultural center of the Rhineland, hosting more than 30 museums, hundreds of galleries, and one of Europe's oldest universities. Its New Year celebrations are something else, or so I hear. Each year, hundreds of thousands of locals and visitors from all across the planet enjoy the midnight fireworks against the magical backdrop of Cologne's cityscape, states the Cologne tourism website. And they're not wrong, it really is a fucking beautiful city. After the British RAF bombed the city into oblivion in World War II, Cologne was rebuilt with the intention of restoring as many historic buildings as possible. But of course, not all could be saved, so the historic would sit beside the modern. This created a very varied city. A mix of post-war modesty, gorgeous restorations, and modern architecture classics from the where.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it!
Never let it be said that the Cologne tourism industry doesn't know how to show its visitors a good time. Fireworks, pretty buildings, that's boring. Forced intercourse, now that's hot and shocking and all those other buzzwords. What? No, of course it won't scare tourists away. Everybody loves rape. As I said almost 4 paragraphs ago, 100 women at the Cologne New Year's Eve celebrations were sexually molested and harassed, with at least 2 women raped. According to Cologne Police Chief Wolfgang Albers, at least 1,000 aggressive young men of Arab and North African appearances were involved. More incidents have also been reported in Berlin, Stuttgart, Düsseldorf, and Frankfurt, but let's just focus on Cologne for now. According to an article by the BBC, the attacks appear to have been organized, with the men arriving in large groups with the specific intention of carrying out attacks on women. Eyewitness testimony of the incident in Cologne appeared on YouTube on January 5th. The account comes from Ivan Ivan, a hotel club bouncer who witnessed what happened at the Cologne Cathedral on New Year's Eve.
Aufgemacht mit den Vorgängern Silvester hier in Köln. Am 31.12.2015 habe ich gearbeitet in einem 5-Sterne-Hotel genau gegenüber vom Dom. Als ich da angefangen habe zu arbeiten, habe ich gedacht, ja, ich habe einen entspannten Abend mit sehr gut situierten Menschen. Die Karten haben so ab 300 € aufwärts gekostet. Es waren alles Gäste so ab 40 Jahre drin. Plötzlich gegen 21, 22 Uhr ging es los, dass schon auf dem Gelände außen, das mit dem Hotel nichts zu tun hatte, eine Messerstecherei war, wurde einer schwer verletzt, Krankenwagen war da, Polizei, und dann eskalierte das Ganze. Die Menschen, die wir vor 3 Monaten noch mit Teddybären und Wasserflaschen in München am Hauptbahnhof empfangen haben angefangen auf den Dom zu schießen, angefangen auf die Bereitschaftspolizisten zu schießen, die dann mit Helmen auf die Domplatte mussten, um diesem ganzen Gewaltpotenzial Einhalt zu gewähren. Gestandene Polizisten haben zu mir gesagt, die haben das noch nie erlebt. Das waren bürgerkriegsähnliche Zustände. Keiner hat darüber berichtet. Im Laufe des Abends kamen immer wieder Frauen zu mir, die gefragt haben, ob sie bei mir stehen bleiben können, damit ich auf sie aufpasse. Ich wusste gar nicht, was es geht. Ja, sie werden verfolgt von den und den Personen. Die wollten dann auf mich los. Habe ich sie weggeklatscht, muss ich euch ganz ehrlich sagen, weil ich habe das noch nie erlebt. Ich habe mir gedacht, das wäre so eine rechte Propaganda. Aber das war alles echt. Später am Abend kam es dann zu weiteren Ausschreitungen. Da haben sie Typen auf dem Boden den Kopf eingeschlagen, der lag drauf, mit dem Fuß drauf. Bereitschaftspolizisten kamen, wir sind eingeschritten und die waren dann circa 1,5 Stunden gefesselt. Es kam aber kein Gefangenentransport, weil erstens waren keine da zur Verfügung, weil alle belegt waren und die Zellen in den umliegenden Aufnahmestellen vom Gewahrsam der Polizei waren total überfüllt. Dann mussten die Polizisten die Straftäter gehen lassen, die sich dann vor das Auto gestellt haben, Fuck the Police geschrien haben und auf die Windschutzscheibe des Polizeiwagens gespuckt haben. Die Polizisten hatten keine Handhabe, irgendetwas zu tun. Ich kann euch nur eins sagen, ich habe sowas noch nie erlebt und es wird eskalieren. Spätestens an Karneval in Köln wird es hier richtig explodieren. Und ich hoffe, ihr wisst, ich bin kein Rechter oder sonst irgendwas. Ich habe mich immer da rausgehalten. Ich habe immer gedacht, diese ganzen Videos etc., das sind alles so rechte Publikationen von Pegida-Gruppen, bla bla bla. Nein, Leute, das war wirklich echt. Mädchen standen zitternd vor mir, bitte, bitte können wir bei dir stehen bleiben. Die haben Angst vor denen, die verfolgen uns die ganze Zeit. Die haben Gäste angepöbelt, angespuckt, die haben die Polizisten angespuckt, die haben Leute auf dem Boden liegend mit dem Fuß auf den Kopf getreten. Die Polizei konnte nichts machen, die waren 1,5 Stunden, haben sie auf Gefangenentransporte gewartet, da waren keine da. Auf anderen Stellen hat es richtig gebrannt, da mussten die hinrennen, konnten aber nicht hin, weil sie die bewachen mussten und auf den Gefangenentransport warten. Also ich kann euch nur sagen, Ich wünsche für 2016 wirklich Frieden auf der Welt und vor allem auch in Deutschland. Euer Ivan. Jetzt wieder draufdrücken.
One man described how his partner and 15-year-old daughter were surrounded by an enormous crowd outside the station and he was unable to help. A British woman visiting Cologne said fireworks had been thrown at her group by men who spoke neither German nor English. But it just gets better. A leaked police report that was published in Bild newspaper and Spiegel directly contradicts the German ministers who have said there is no evidence that asylum seekers were involved in the violence. The report claims that one of the suspects involved told officers, "I am Syrian, you have to treat me kindly, Mrs. Merkel invited me." Another tore up his residency permit before the eyes of the police and told them, "You can't do anything to me, I can get a new one tomorrow." A local newspaper reported that 15 asylum seekers from Syria and Afghanistan were briefly held by police on New Year's Eve in connection with the sex attacks, but were released. The Express newspaper quoted an unnamed police officer who said his squad detained several people who had only been in Germany for a few weeks. Of these people, 14 were from Syria and 1 was from Afghanistan. That's the truth, although it hurts, he said. As of the time of writing, 2 men have been arrested after videos of the assaults were found on their phones. Also found in their possession was a piece of paper with Arabic to German translations for "nice boobs, I kill you, and I want to fuck you." Well, what else do you need to say? It's straight to the point. None of that romantic dinner shit just against a back alley wall with stilted German threats whispered in your ear. It's the type of story you tell your kids in 10 years' time. For 5 days, what went on in Cologne was suppressed, and an article published by Focus on January 9 may shed some light as to why that was. Included in the article is an interview with a senior Frankfurt police officer who claims that there are strict instructions of the border directors not to report offences committed by refugees, and that only direct requests from media representatives for such acts should be answered. For offences of criminal suspects who have a foreign nationality and are reported in a reception centre, we put the case on their desk immediately to the side, he continued. Michael Shaik, spokesman of the Hessian Ministry of the Interior, says this is because the press officer managers were advised that the issue of refugees could be exploited by right-wing extremists to selectively stoke sentiment against those seeking protection, but he denied that it was an explicit instruction by the Interior Ministry to do this. This silence also extended to incidents in and around refugee shelters, and only attacks by neo-Nazis should be reported. So the police had a culture of silence created out of fear that the wrong political faction would use refugee crimes as proof to further their cause. Well, that explains why the original police report stated the evening was a peaceful one. But it's out in the open now. The cavalry should be on its way, right?
Wrong!
The mayor of Cologne, Henriette Recker, said that German women should behave according to a code of conduct, advising women to travel in groups and stay at arm's length from men they did not know to avoid such attacks happening to them. Why, that sounds an awful lot like victim blaming, doesn't it? Feminist author Laurie Penny also turned her gaze on the incident. Well, surely she'll help, right?
Crack talking.
Women of Germany, you've officially been beaten out by rapey migrants on the progressive stack. Don't feel too bad. You can come and hang out with white, straight, cis scum and the gays now if you want. We won't act smug and tell you that we told you so. Much. Let's stop beating around the bush, shall we? Germany has a migrant problem, and the sheer retardation of the German authorities in handling this problem is just making it worse. Because of said retardation, this story goes beyond rapes. If it were just rapes, it would be a tragedy. But the Interior Ministry recommending the police stay silent on refugee crimes makes it so much fucking worse. This is an example of a culture of silence fostered by the government to keep political foes down, and it's this culture of silence that meant the police tried to cover the rapes up. Here's some free fucking advice, Merkel. Keeping silent on the problem just allows it to fester under the surface until it explodes into the limelight like it did in Cologne. Yes, I know it wasn't every migrant that committed the rapes, but if you offer me a goddamn bowl of Skittles and you assure me that only some of them are poisoned, I'm going to force feed them to you instead. As much as we don't like to talk about it, some cultures are just arse backwards, and Islamic culture is that. Backwards. It creates people who do this sort of shit, and if we keep pussyfooting around the problem, we'll never be able to address it. And let's just get this out in the open as well. No, it's not racist that I just said that. Islam is a religion, a cultural system of behaviors, practices, worldviews, ethics, and social organization that likes to stone women to death and go on killing sprees in the name of their God. So shut the fuck up about that bullshit. If you think it's okay to criticize Christianity, or any of its denominations and the cultures they created, then Islam is fair game as well. So how do you fix this? Well, you can't. The damage is already done. 1.5 million migrants in 2015 from cultures that worship a dude that molested kids. Services stretched to the limit, and a government that stuck its head so far in the fucking sand it busted through to China. If they keep going this way, Germany's fall is as inevitable as the goddamn tide. So just get the popcorn, grab a beer, and watch the fireworks.